Hello, and welcome back to another pen talk. I could say this is a special pen talk, but then I think all of them are special. But this one, we're going to focus on large pens, recent models from Jinhao. And they've accelerated, I think, their new model introductions. The X59 came out a while ago, well, a couple months maybe, with that huge nib on it. And they made a lot of different colors, as you can see here. And they made silver trim, color, gold color trim. Nice, but that wasn't enough for Jinhao. They had to come out with the 9019, which here are four examples. We have an opaque blue, and here's an X159 in blue, and we'll compare those a little bit more closely. And here's a red, kind of in the red family, a blue, and a clear one. So I'm impressed. They changed the clip, which I happen to prefer this style to this style. This is more of a smaller, minimalistic design. This one's more in-your-face type of clip. Generally, I think a better clip to put on a very large pen, and the 9019 is a large pen. We'll do some comparisons of large pens a little bit ago in the video. So feast your eyes. Let's look a little more closely. So here are our two X159s in red, one with silver colored trim and one with gold colored trim. Are these the same color plastic in both pens? Sometimes my eyes see this one is a little bit lighter, this one a little bit darker, but is that just our eyes and mind deceiving us because of the color of the trim influencing the way we see the color of the plastic? What do you think? Let me know. So here's our first of many comparisons, the 9019 versus the X159. And this is opaque blue. Again, there's a slight difference in the color. I've done injection molding, and the resin has a lot of variations to it, how the pigment's mixed in. Can easily lead to some slight variations in color, but both of these blues I think are nice blues. And I think they came up good against the gold colored trim. So I think we also need to compare the translucent, which lets some light through, and it's in the red family color, against the X159 in the opaque red. So you can get to see the difference between them. Both are in gold trim. The other thing I think is nice is the way they've done the engraving on the cap band. I prefer the cap band on the 9019 to the X159. Again, I think Jinhao did some minor improvements in that from my eyes. And it's more functional because it's at the end of the cap versus this one, which allows some of that end of the cap be exposed. Different design, different function, both good pens. So here's my latest 9019 Jinhao pens, slightly disassembled. So we have this translucent blue one and the non-transparent opaque blue one. This one, the nib assembly unscrewed relatively easily from the section. And of course, I flushed this to make certain it was nice and clean. And I just put one converter here because they're all the same and they look really nice. So one of the things that I'm always amazed about is a viewer picked up the fact that this nib is an X159 engraved at the back of it, near those slits. Really nice looking two-tone nib. You have to give Jinhao a lot of credit. This is a fine looking nib, and it is a fine nib. And the feed is also done well. So I think Jinhao has done a lot of little things on this pen to improve it and make it a great pen, one that's going to go down in the journals of pen history, at least big pens from China. Here I've assembled some large pens that we're going to compare. We have some Jinhaos and a Renga and a Wing Sung. which is this one here. The Wingsung 630, I did a review of this, and we'll put links to reviews of these pens in the video description for those that would like to see more. And I like the fact that they put 630 on the cap band, but when you compare it to the 9019, it's smaller. It's a little bit longer in length, but it's 2 millimeters shorter in girth, which is a significant amount. The other thing that made the 630 unique is it's the first pen that Wingsung has put on a large nib. Some might call it a number 8, some might call it 7.5 or some other variations, but it's certainly much larger than their standard number 6 nib, and in this case it also looks longer. Still very, very nice clean engraving on both of these nibs. I think they've done a good job at making their nibs look very nice. And then we have an X159 here. And then these two pens, which Jinhao came out with last year, 9035, an all wood version, and then a tiger version with wood barrel. But the thing that these have is they have their number 6 nibs, and not in two-tone. So if we compare them to the Jinhao larger nib, we'll see how much larger that larger nib is. The size of the nib really has not that much of an impact on the writing experience, but visually it matches up to a larger pen, and that's why a lot of people like the larger nibs. And there's that whole feeling that bigger is better, so bigger nib must be better. This is a Renga Grand Abanami, probably butchering that, in a nice ebonite. And when we uncap this one, we'll see something interesting. It's a Jinhao number 8 nib. This was designed to just screw in that Jinhao nib assembly. And this is definitely the most girthy pen that I have in this group. It's very nice, fits well in the hand, and I like that ebonite. So here's a lot of variety in what I would call larger than normal pens. Some might call them oversized, but that's just a relative description. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little look at some interesting large pens. So as labeled, these nibs are all the same X159 nibs that are used in the 9019 as well as the X159. But my experience based on these 4 pens I've had inked up for a while, the extra fine on the 9019 is a really nice extra fine, writes well, smooth, lays down a nice patch of ink. The medium is almost twice the line width, which is what you would expect. And again, it's a nice writer, obviously lays down more ink than the extra fine. So now we go to the X159 nibs, and here's the fine, which is the first X159 I had inked up. It has a glitter ink in it from China, and this fine is a very wide line, wider than the medium in the 9019, and again, puts down a lot of ink. And here's the medium, which doesn't look that much wider, probably about the same width as the fine. So I would say this fine is an outlier in these nibs. The mediums are in between these two, and the extra fine is just very nice. I only have that one extra fine inked up. But yeah, it's all different inks in these pens, but they're all similar types of inks that I've used in other pens, so I'm familiar with the flow and the wetness of the ink. So I think this is a good look at the different nib sizes that Jinhao offers on these big pens, these number 8 approximately sized nibs. So hopefully if you like extra fine, definitely go for the extra fine. The fine nibs, at least from this example, could be a little bit wider than you like. And the mediums are not quite as wide as you would expect based on the fine, but all of these nibs are nice, smooth, and are enjoyable to write with. That's what counts. Oh, you may say, Chris, how does these new Jinhao models compare to the old familiar 159 here in a nice yellow? People objected to this emblem on the clip. I think it's okay. It's a Chinese pen. Obviously, Jinhao simplified the clip in this design, and here they replicated a tried and true design with a nice big ball at the end, nice flexible clip. All these clips work well. This is definitely girthy, and these other two are even more girthy in the same realm, but this weight was excessive. We'll show you the weights of these 3 pens. Let's look at the business end, and there a lot of things are to be seen. So here you can see obviously the difference in the sections. I prefer the 9019 section. It's a little longer than the X159, and certainly to me a better shape and size than the one on the original 159. Two-tone nib, just a mono silver tone nib. The two-tone nib definitely looks good on this pen, as did the original smaller nib on the X159. I don't like the 18K gold plate or whatever the designation is. I like the fact that they now have the nib size on these bigger nibs, which is nice because, as we saw from the writing sample, you don't actually know till you write with it how that nib is going to perform. But kudos to Jinhao to taking this big pen design, which was around for a long, long time, modernizing it and coming out with 2 models relatively close together, but each of them have their own distinguishing characteristics. Now we've come to our conclusion of this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed another look at 9019 and X159 and 159 pens and other large pens that kind of fit in this family that has become very popular this year, 2023. So people ask me in comments, oh, what's your favorite pen, and blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm very adaptable, and my view on using a fountain pen is trying to understand what the pen is designed for, how it writes, and whether that's something that I can accommodate versus looking for a pen that accommodates my writing. Secondly, my writing changes from day to day, week to week, so therefore I love having a lot of pens inked up, and there's always one I can use that just feels perfect, and that's the joy of writing. In summation, kudos to Jinhao for continuing to evolve. No piston filler or vac filler. They used to be cartridge converters, and they made a big one now, which is really, really good. And they've gotten a lot of good press from people that generally don't like Chinese pens, so I think that's also good. To me, I don't care where a pen comes from. I don't care what it looks like, as long as I enjoy writing with it. And these pens I enjoy writing with. So I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, whatever they are, enjoying putting some ink down, sharing thoughts, communicating, drawing, sketching, doodling, whatever. So we've reached the end of this video, and we will say bye. More to come.